Live. We're live. Lots to talk about today. Let me go through my little list here, or my big list here. A lot of Bernie stuff, naturally. A couple of Biden things. A new poll out. Something about Pramila Jayapal as well. Also Trump. I don't discuss Trump very often, but this was hilarious. I have to share this. And that kind of sums it up. There's a lot, but I don't want to get too specific yet because I want you to find out when I get there. So before we go any farther, rationalnational.com/join. That gets you to the Patreon page where you can help support me, keep this channel going. I can't rely on YouTube ads. Every single one of these live streams get demonetized. So I pretty much have the YouTube ads on my usual videos when I do have them. And Patreon support and super chats, of course, as well. So if you want to get your super chats in, I usually get to most of them at the end, though recently I've been doing super chats throughout the stream as well. So I'll be taking them randomly. Who knows? We'll see how it all unfolds. Okay, man, let's start. I'm stressed out. It was my birthday yesterday. I spent a lot of the night trying to get my debate breakdown out, and this was in between, going out for dinner and doing all that stuff. But so I'm a little tired today, but hopefully, as usual, my videos ramp up, and I'll get into it. All right, first, let's start with something funny, something enjoyable. I mean, all of this is going to be enjoyable, but let's just start with a laugh. I always forget how to pronounce this guy's name. Adomian. You know where I'm going with this. Comedian James Adomian does the best Bernie Sanders impression. So naturally, he sat down as Bernie Sanders with Bernie Sanders. So I'm going to show you a clip of this. There's a longer clip and a whole podcast, a whole interview with Bernie that he did. I'll share that after this. But let me first show you this series of clips here. Or not series. This one clip here. It is friggin' fantastic. If you haven't seen this yet, it is so damn funny. Actually, I'm going to go a little small. There we go. Maybe I'll just go off the screen. Because now it looks like I'm just beside Bernie Sanders.
Your legs are not showing, are they?
This is not...
oh, good. Long socks. Very good. Oh,
Good.
oh my God. Here I am.
All right. You never know when the weather could turn. We're from Vermont.
Yes.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm hanging in. How are you?
I'm not so bad. It's good to have you here. I might be from an alternate universe. I don't know. But what I said to myself was, we don't get a fair shot in the mainstream media. So I said, what the heck? What the hey?
What the hell? What the hell?
Yeah, I would interview myself. So here we are.
All right.
Something you have said before, and something I have said, and maybe something that we have both said every time we've ever said anything, is that for far too long, the top 1% of the top 10% of the top 1% of the top 10% of the...
No, you got to get it wrong.
All right, what is it?
It's the top 1%.
The top 1%, that's what I said.
The top 10%.
Of the top 10%.
The top 8%.
Of the top 8%, you're throwing in an 8.
Absolutely. You got to follow the new statistics. They come out every month.
You have a way of, not only through words, but also through your hands, talking to an audience, communicating your message. The wingspan.
The wingspan.
What exactly is the wingspan? It's over 6 feet.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've heard that the wingspan is about...
I can't even do it. I'm not...
The people are already cheering. I see this, birds could be landing any moment now.
What people don't fully understand, you do all these gestures?
Yes.
It's part of my exercise regimen.
That's right. There's little
So
weights.
you're giving
They
a
don't see the
speech,
weights.
important, but at the same time, keeping healthy. We're doing that stuff.
Yes. Let me ask you, and when I say that, I'm going to ask myself, like a madman. You have a plan for national rent control. This is a revolutionary plan. I don't think it goes far enough. I want to know if there's possible that by executive order, you could order the damn landlord to finally fix the sink that's sagging off the wall.
I'm going to have my Attorney General look at that.
That's
I mean,
good.
that is a
That's good.
real.
That's fair.
How bad is that sick?
Well, it's been there's a little bit of a leak. It's sagging off the wall. It's not a caulking issue because there's nothing structural
And the
holding the
landlord
sink.
All right, that was just a little taste. You got to watch the whole thing. Actually, let me show you right here. First, Bernie's response to this. He retweeted this out saying, "It was an honor to talk to myself." Bernie's hilarious. He is like naturally funny, and I'm going to show you a clip from the debate later on. That's an example of that. But so if you want to watch the whole thing or hear the whole the full interview, check out James Adomian. Just follow him on Twitter. You'll see the links, and same on YouTube. Just search his name on YouTube. You'll find out. You'll see the whole Bernie interview. So there's that fun stuff. Now let's get into some real shit. Oh, great. I swore. That means I got demonetized. Oh, no. YouTube's ridiculous. Okay. Let's do Joe Biden. Man. When you guys see this, if you haven't seen this already, this is... Joe Biden's ridiculous. Like, he's just... I don't know. I really have a hard time understanding how he's still as high in the polls as he is. I mean, it's nuts. If anybody that supports him is paying attention, how do you still support him? I don't get it. But let's get to what I want to show you here. So Joe Biden told a protester who is criticizing deportations that he should vote for Donald Trump. So this is a member of Movimiento Cosecha, an immigrant-led movement. Let me show you the clip here. This is, I mean, I want to say unbelievable, but it's Joe Biden. So it's totally believable, completely expected, and absolutely crazy.
My name is Sylvia, and every day I live under the fear that ICE is going to separate my family.
Usted ha defendido a 3 millones de deportaciones que ocurrieron cuando Obama era presidente.
I have heard that you have defended Obama's record of 3 million deportations that happened over the 8 years that he was in office.
Y por eso es difícil confiar en usted. Yo quiero saber si usted es elegido presidente, podría poner fin a las deportaciones el día de su primer día de mandato.
Because of the deportations were so high under the Obama administration, it is hard for me as an immigrant to trust you. And I want to know, if you were to be president, will you stop deportations on day one through executive action?
No. I will not stop all deportations. I'll prioritize deportations, only people who committed a felony or a serious crime.
Separated from their families.
Yeah.
We had this classification of families.
You should go for Trump. You should go for Trump.
No, I'm not going to do that. But I want to make sure that immigrant families and people like Sylvia are not fair. And you have the power as a candidate to actually commit to stop all deportation from day one to executive action. And we want to hear you say that.
I will not stop all deportations if you commit a crime that's a felony.
Not one more.
Deportation!
Okay. Well,
Deportation!
All right. There was a way to deal with this that didn't lead to Biden telling this guy to vote for Trump. I mean, really, he could have said anything else. Like the idea that you're telling this man who is discussing how, you know, him and his family, his friends fear for their lives for being deported for doing nothing wrong, and you tell this man to vote for Trump. It really shows you how disconnected Joe Biden is from real people and, you know, just from compassion. I mean, for him to not understand what this man and his family are going through, and he's leading in the in the race right now for the Democratic primary, I don't get how people support Joe Biden. I just don't. If you know anything about anything, you follow any of the news, you watch any of these debates, how can you possibly think that this is the man to defeat Trump? Like, it is completely insane, and a lot of this pathology is based on the same feelings that people had about Hillary Clinton. Oh, we know her; she's a known quantity. That means she can defeat Trump. Like, really, like, what else is it? Like, they don't actually go and look at what policies these candidates support, what is popular, who has the energy, who has the most, individual donors, who has the grassroots movement, who has volunteers to go out, knock on doors, get more people out to vote, get non-voters out to vote, who's able to bring all this together into a movement to defeat Trump, and not only defeat Trump, but also transform the country for the people. Joe Biden doesn't have any of that. So I would blame the media, but the media now is on, they're with Pete Buttigieg. Like, they aren't really defending Biden either, for the most part. I see their coverage. So it's weird to me that he's still holding a solid chunk of support. And we're going to get to a poll later that shows that, while at the same time showing that Bernie is also still surging. So, I mean, I keep hoping that Biden's going to drop completely, drop like a rock, but it's not happening. Every time he drops, he bounces back up. I don't know how he's doing it, but I also feel that a lot of the polling right now is just like typical polling. They poll the voters that normally vote. They don't really have a feeling of what non-voters feel, because standard polling usually looks at registered voters, people that voted last time, who they intend to vote for this time. And this is an election that I think will be a change election. You're going to have a lot of non-voters coming out to vote, hopefully, in the primary before we get to the general. So in the general, I imagine that will happen as well, depending on the candidate. But in the primary, I think a lot of people that didn't vote last time, weren't paying attention last time, are going to pay attention this time. At least that's the hope. And we really need young voters. I mean, that's kind of what is going to make or break this for Bernie Sanders. He needs the young people out to vote in the primary. Don't wait till the general and hope he wins. You have to go out in the primary. So, that's that. I have another Joe Biden protester thing coming up as well, so this isn't the only one. But first, let me go back to polling. Also, I heard some super chats. Maybe I'll take a few of those. I'll take a few of those first. I'm going to go kind of in reverse order here because I can't see them all in my chat. But JMax says, have you read Noam Chomsky's Manufactured Consent? It's amazing how a book wrote in the 1980s is even more relevant today. Example, Bernie blackout. P.S. Fire alarms go off because of how hot you are. That is not the case. I haven't read the whole thing, but I do know of, I know what it's about generally. And yeah, you're completely on. That book touched on not even it's relevant today still, because the media still operates the same way. We're still watching television in a similar way that people watched back then. So that is now changing though a bit. So because a lot of people are online or on YouTube, a lot of that changes. So I don't really I wonder how long that book is going to be relevant, because we're going to get to a point where I was thinking about this morning. We're going to get to a point where who's going to be hosting shows on MSNBC? I mean, think of 10 years in the future, 15 years in the future, where it's mostly YouTube or online publications. Who's going to be watching cable news unless they completely revamp how they present the news and who they hire? But then they wouldn't be working in the best interests of massive media corporations anymore if that were the case, if they were to actually adjust for what people are currently feeling. So I'm clueless on how cable news is going to evolve, because there is no future for cable news unless it changes. But if it changes, then it's working against itself, because then it acknowledges the power of these massive corporations. So I'm really curious to see how that all unfolds. But back to your point, that book is definitely still relevant. Okay. I know I missed a few super chats. I just can't see them the way this is all laid out, but I will get to them later. Let me get to something else. You know, one day I'll have a producer that can do all this. And I would just be right into the next segment. But until that day, it's all me. All right, I think I want to do this Emerson poll next. I'm enjoying these polls. I mean, again, a poll is a poll, but when you begin to see a larger trend, as we're beginning to see now, with multiple polls coming out showing Bernie surging here, there is definitely some movement, and it can't just be among younger people, unless they're actually polling younger people now more than usual, which is possible. But as you're going to see, there's been some changes in who is leading nationally, or how they're leading, if that makes any sense. All right. A new Emerson poll shows that Bernie Sanders is continuing to rise and has taken the lead nationally against Donald Trump. So let me show you this data here. And it's not even just one aspect of this poll, which I'll get to that piece in a second, but it's also this here. So let me make this a little bigger. So this was taken the 17th to the 20th. You now have Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders at the top, tied at 27%. So usually how these national polls look, you have Biden on top, Warren or Sanders in second, usually, 5 to 10 points behind Joe Biden, and then everybody else. Now we are seeing a clear jump for Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden kind of holding steady, but also dropping a little bit. And that's what leads to this tie here. And we're also I'm going to get into the breakdown in terms of who young voters support more, though you can probably already guess what that looks like. But if we go to this other piece here. So not only is Bernie tied nationally with Joe Biden, he's also the only one right now that is defeating Trump nationally in this Emerson poll. So Sanders right here, 50-49 to Trump's 49. Trump and Warren are tied at 50. Trump is defeating Biden 51-49. This puts a huge hole into the idea that Joe Biden was trying to sell during the debate, that he's the only one that could defeat Trump. No, clearly his support is dropping, and Trump is surging ahead of him. And Trump also defeats Buttigieg by an even larger margin than he defeats Joe Biden, which also is not surprising. So the two progressive candidates, or I should say the two most progressive candidates, and Bernie having a clear lead here, are better against Trump nationally. And this is a trend that we are continuing to see. Let me now get to voters under 50. So voters under 50 in this poll, not all that surprising. You have Bernie Sanders with the lead there, 37%, Elizabeth Warren 22%, Biden 15%, and Yang at 7%. Buttigieg isn't even there. So that isn't the actual screenshot. But so Buttigieg, who is fourth nationally in polling, isn't even fourth in voters under 50. Yang is actually fourth. So, I mean, I really don't think Buttigieg is going to last well into the primary, as some people maybe suspect he will, simply because, I mean, right now you see him leading in some polls in Iowa, which is crazy to me. But again, even if it's just Iowa, I mean, didn't Ted Cruz win Iowa in 2016 against Donald Trump, and then Donald Trump just kind of, went on from there? So the first state really doesn't mean everything. I mean, obviously it would help. Whoever wins that state it's going to be good for them, obviously. But it's like, if Buttigieg wins it, that doesn't mean all of a sudden he's going to get huge support in South Carolina or huge support anywhere else. So you have right now Buttigieg pouring all of his money into one state in Iowa, which is the reason, the main reason why he's leading there. And his bet is that if he wins Iowa, then that will give a momentum into the next states, which I guess is a strategy, but it's not. There's no guarantee there. So Buttigieg, even though he's fourth nationally and first in Iowa, I don't know if he really has the legs to continue past that. And Sanders, of course, most supporters under 50. I think there's also over 50. Here we go. So this also isn't surprising. But look at Biden's lead. Like, this is the scourge right now of cable news. This is what it does. Even though, as I said, cable news right now is kind of supporting Buttigieg, but Joe Biden, he still has a lot of support on cable news from people that show up on there to comment. Biden 44%, Warren 16%, Sanders 13%, Buttigieg 12%, with voters over 50. A lot of that as well is simply name recognition and familiarity. So they know Joe Biden. They had 8 years of Joe Biden, kind of. But this is why the young voters have to come out and vote. If you're young, please, not even just you watching this, because I know you're going to vote. Get your friends and family out to vote. If you have to engage people who are not normally engaged in politics in the process, you have to get them out. Make sure they're registered now so that they can vote on primary day. I think there's one more thing I want to share here. So out of the same poll, actually, no, this is a different poll, but this shows you Bernie support. So among Hispanic college students, Sanders is 51% support. That is massive. Among black college students, Sanders 37%. Again, way ahead of everybody else here. And nationally, college students, Sanders at 35, Warren's at 24, and no one else is even close to any of them. So Bernie's got the young support. You just got to go out and vote in the primary, or none of this matters. All right, what's next? Maybe I will get to some super chats to break this up a little bit. All right, let's see what I missed here. All right. Obi Alfred said, "Happy birthday, my guy." Thank you. My birthday was yesterday. I spent a lot of it editing a video about the debate breakdown. But thank you so much. I appreciate the super chat. Dr. Onage CBK says, "Love your passion and integrity. No corporate bias." Thank you. I already read J-Max. Carla Santos says, "David, are you really 40? You look good." I'm not in my 40s. I'm not sure where you heard that from. Is Anthony Fantano in the chat? Because on Twitter, he's like, "Happy 43rd birthday." I'm not in my 40s. If I was, though, I would agree with you. That would be impressive if I look like this in my 40s. Legendary Pete sends a super chat, says, "Polls don't mean jack. 55-year-olds are 50% polled." Yeah, that's the thing with... See, polls do matter in the sense that they're just going off a model of how people normally vote. So normally, it's usually older voters that go out and vote in these primaries. So they're just using that model from the past and applying it today. But if you change the model, if you have a lot of young people come out to vote, then yeah, you're right, the polls don't matter. But right now, they still matter because there's no other model to go off of. So you have to help to change the model by actually going out to vote in the primaries. And in the future, polling will be a little more accurate because it'll actually look at young voters a little more than they're currently looking at. But I do get your larger point. Mark IT Geek says, "This is my first ever super chat. I've resisted until now because it annoys me that YouTube makes a whopping 30% off it." YouTube does take a crazy chunk out of our super chats. It seems way too much. Anyway, David, we American progressives love you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. By the way, there is another way to donate to me if you don't want to do... I just got to find the link. I'm not going to do it now. But there's a Streamlabs link that I don't know. But if you know the Streamlabs link, you could donate that way and YouTube doesn't get a cut. But next time I'll bring that link out. Peaceful Gamer sends a super chat in saying, glad to see another independent media source cut through the BS. Became a fan instantly, then learned you're not only a fellow Canadian, but from Toronto. Keep up the great work, brother. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for the big super chat. Actually, both you and Mark gave, and J-Mac, $10. Much appreciated. That's a lot. Thank you. Andre Alexander sends a super chat in saying, I love Bernie and want him to win, but he is too scared to attack anyone in these debates. Why isn't he attacking Joe in the crime bill? Mod me. Nice little ending there. I hear you. I do hear you, especially Joe Biden. I think, yeah, he went after Joe Biden a little bit. He's gone after him on his Iraq War vote now a couple times. On the crime bill, Bernie also jumped on the crime bill, but it was because of the Violence Against Women Act. The problem with bringing up the crime bill, there's too much. You can't go through all the details in a 30-second soundbite that explains why Bernie voted it, why it was different than Biden's support, how Biden wrote it. Like, there's too much to go over, so it's too hard of in a debate like that where you have 30 seconds a minute. It's not worth going or hitting Joe on that. But there is on a ton. I mean, the trade deals. I mean, Joe Biden's entire history has just been the opposite of Bernie Sanders. So you could pick any issue, look at what Joe Biden said about it back then, see what Bernie said about it. It's going to be the opposite, most likely. And then, yeah, make a point of that. I do agree with you. He should be a little more aggressive in these debates, but he's also kind of waiting it out. Bernie right now has the ability to kind of ride this primary out right now, because he has a ton of money, a ton of recurring donations, a ton of grassroots support. He has the money to help to drive him to the end of the primary. I mean, he can stay in this the entire time if he wants to, because of his support, because of all the donations he's receiving from grassroots donors. So he doesn't really need to be on the aggressive, because there's no real chance that he's going to be out of this race anytime soon. He's in here to last. So he can kind of, hold his cards close to his chest, save these attacks for when you get deeper into the race, and then really hit whoever he's going up against. So, I think there definitely could be a benefit for him doing all that now, especially someone like Joe Biden, where I think potentially there's a lot of Joe Biden support that he could peel off. And it's because a lot of these people that support Joe Biden just support him because they think he's the best person to defeat Trump, when he's not. So if Bernie brings up that point more often, brings up the actual polling on the race more often, bring up the poll like I just showed you, where the Emerson poll showing only Bernie defeats Trump nationally, where Biden loses. Bring these kinds of things up. I think that's how you really hit the Joe Biden supporters, because that shows you Joe Biden is not solid for the general election. That's really where Biden's weakness is, because he's using that as his strength, that he can defeat Trump, no one else can, when that's not true. So that's where you would have to criticize him. Thank you, Andre. I heard some more super chats. I will get to them, but I got some more stories. So let me get to that. I don't look at this fuzziness. I hate this green screen. Like, the green screen's fine, but something with the program, I just can't get a perfect green screen. I don't like, I should say a perfect chroma key. I don't know what's going on with that. It's kind of annoying me. I don't know if you noticed my editing. I'm kind of a perfectionist, so when I have like stuff like that going on, it actually bothers me. But let's move on. Oh, this is another good one with Joe Biden. By the way, if you're hearing that noise in the background, it's Bernie saying rational national priorities. That's a Streamlabs thing. For some reason, I don't know how to make the audio go away, even though it's not on the screen. So I'm going to have to lower my own audio. All right, Joe Biden. Again. Don't worry, this is the last Joe Biden story. But you have to see this. It's pretty funny. So Joe Biden told a climate protester that she listens to Bernie too much. Now, I haven't found a video of this yet, but I do have a report here. I should say a tweet from, let me get up this person's tweet here, from Cleve R. Woodson Jr. He's of the Washington Post. So, as I'm going to show you here, He put out this tweet saying, difficult night for Biden. After climate protesters were escorted out, a woman asked him to, quote, please don't take money from corporations. Biden's response, you listen to Bernie too much. Now, what's funny about this, apart from, it being funny on its face, is that Joe Biden has discussed how money corrupts politics. So I did a video on this before. Let me show you Joe Biden discussing this.
Bad people. Special interest groups are not bad people. But guess what? They're corrosive. People who accept the money from them aren't bad people, but it's human nature. You go out, Lynn, and bundle $250,000 for me, all legal, and then you call me after I'm elected and say, Joe, I'd like to come and talk to you about something. You didn't buy me, but it's human nature. You helped me. I'm going to say, sure, Lynn, come on in.
All right. That is like everything you need to know. Joe Biden knows. Clearly, he knows the impact of money on politics. He knows if somebody gives him a ton of money, it's going to affect him. If that person calls him up and wants a favor, it's going to impact him naturally because it's human nature. The people you surround yourself with, your environment, even if you don't want it to impact you, it will impact you, which is why Bernie is brilliant by completely avoiding private fundraisers, completely avoiding corporate money, corporate PACs, super PACs, all that, only relying on individual donors. Joe Biden, even though he clearly knows the impact of private money on politics, he's still taking money, having these private fundraisers with CEOs from massive corporations, clearly having an impact on his politics. Like, this stuff is obvious, I hope, but for Joe Biden just to straight up and say, oh, you listen to Bernie too much because you're telling me to not take corporate money. I mean, I don't know. It shows you that Biden understands he's corrupted. Like, I don't know what else it tells you. Clearly, he's telling you, yes, this money impacts me, but don't listen to Bernie, whatever. Who cares that it impacts me? It doesn't matter. You're listening to Bernie too much. Go vote for Bernie. Go vote for Trump, whatever. Like, the way he passes these people off, these criticisms off, these legitimate criticisms. I mean, imagine him in a debate against Donald Trump. You bring up something like Hunter Biden. Now, look, I understand conservatives, Republicans are using Hunter Biden, all that as a distraction from, the actual impeachment hearings of Donald Trump. But it's still a problem. I mean, the fact that you have this sort of nepotism, which clearly, impacts Trump as well, Trump and his kids. But Trump is a freaking chameleon. He just goes around. He can lob that criticism at Joe Biden, and it won't impact Trump because Trump has a way of doing it where Joe becomes the focus of attention, where Hunter Biden becomes the focus of attention. Hey, Joe, your son making all this money from Ukraine just because he's your son. Now, a skilled politician would come back and say, but how about you, Trump? And at the same time acknowledging, yes, this system is crazy, that simply because, this Hunter's my son, that he can make all this money for doing nothing. Yes, that system is crazy. We have to change it. But Joe Biden doesn't believe that. He doesn't want to change that. That's for him. That's the status quo. That benefits him. That benefits his family, obviously. So a skilled politician would be able to hit Trump back on this, but Joe Biden is neither skilled nor does he actually want to change anything. This is the system. This is the natural corruption in the system. Again, it's all legal. What Hunter Biden did is all legal, but that's a problem with the system. So for Joe Biden not even be able to acknowledge that, point that out, and want to change that shows you there is a giant hole in his ability to defeat Donald Trump. Donald Trump could just paint him the same way he painted Hillary Clinton. Just your typical politician, your corrupt politician. He's going to, work with the wealthiest in the country, work with the massive corporations. He's going to bring the swamp back, even though I know Trump is living in the swamp. But it doesn't, this is why you need someone like Bernie Sanders, or not but you need Bernie Sanders to go up against Trump. Because what is Trump going to say? Oh, you're a socialist. Okay. Democrats have been called socialists for the last 40 years. It hasn't done anything. I mean, it doesn't really matter. People will hear what Bernie's actually saying, will see what he's actually about, recognize that he's different, recognize that he's a lifelong independent, has a history of calling out the establishment in both parties, is only funded by individual donors. I mean, there is nothing with any substance to go after Bernie Sanders on, because Bernie has a 40-year record of fighting for people, is only accepting money from individual donors, mostly small individual donors. I mean, Bernie is the complete antithesis to Donald Trump. Joe Biden is just another flavor of Donald Trump. So I just don't. I'd be super worried if he was the one going up against Trump in a general election, because he's going to suppress the vote. Young voters, are young voters going to go out and knock on doors for Joe Biden? Really? Like, are they going to get people out to vote for Joe Biden? He has no hope. And the only way you change this is to go out and vote as a young person. Or maybe you're not a young person, but you support Bernie. You're going to go out and vote anyways. But get your friends and family, people that are young, that don't normally vote, or not even just young, again, people that don't normally vote. You have to appeal to people that don't normally vote. Bernie Sanders, you have to, Bernie Sanders sells himself. But it's really easy to sell Bernie Sanders to a non-voter. But the hard part is getting them to actually go out and vote on election day. That's the hard part, because it does take some effort to go out and vote. So you have to bring people with you on voting day in your state. Again, not just the general. Primary is what matters even more here in some way. Okay, I got more. Actually, since I heard some super chats, let me get to some super chats. JCG Irvin says, I think Bernie is not going to go negative. I think he'll still fight on the issues and occasionally call someone out, but I expect more of the same. He fears changing strategy for good reason? Question mark. Yeah, I don't think Bernie's going to go, he's not going to go negative, but comparing your record to other candidates, I don't think is going negative. I guess you could maybe argue, say if Bernie went after Pete Buttigieg on what he did in South Carolina, I guess you could maybe view that as negative, but it also would just be bringing up a story that is not being touched on. I mean, I discussed this in my debate breakdown. It is amazing to me that there wasn't one question or anybody on stage brought up the fact that what Pete Buttigieg did in South Carolina, faking black support, had people sent out an email to prominent black and white people in South Carolina saying, if you don't support my Douglas plan, then make sure you email me back before 4 p.m. Meaning that you had to opt out of his endorsement. You had to opt out of endorsing Pete Buttigieg. So I get tons of emails. We all get lots of emails that we don't see or see the next day. If you didn't respond to that email in time, all of a sudden you've now endorsed Pete Buttigieg. Like, how was that not brought up in that debate? Completely insane. There is an obvious bias. It is out front that they love Pete Buttigieg. In addition to Morning Joe, I mean, I covered the Morning Joe clip earlier this week. Unbelievable. Mika Brzezinski saying, what is there to go after Pete Buttigieg on? Oh, he's too nice. She actually said that. I mean, cable news has just become a parody of itself at this point. Carla Santos says, why don't Pete, Kamala, Corey, Warren, and Tulsi just call their plans public option instead of Medicare for all? Because they know Medicare for all is popular. I mean, that's the big giveaway. Pete Buttigieg wouldn't be calling his plan Medicare for those who want it if it wasn't popular, if Medicare for all on its own wasn't popular. So he adopts the name, pretends that Medicare for All in his plan would be the exact same Medicare for All as under Bernie's plan, which it wouldn't be. It would be a public option, meaning you have the resource of the public option drained as a private insurance companies offset all the sick people onto the public system. I mean, it's disgusting. But they use the name Medicare for All because Medicare for All is popular. That's the big giveaway. And then you have, the moderators during the debate question Elizabeth Warren and the other people saying, well, if you support Medicare for All, aren't you going to lose votes? like there's people out there on election day. Well, I'm either going to vote for this corrupt, racist asshole in the White House, Donald Trump, or I'm going to vote for the Democrat, but the Democrat supports Medicare for All. Okay, I'm voting for Trump. Those people don't exist. So they just want to create this narrative that if you want anything better, if you want to improve the lives of people at all, you're going to lose some votes because that's their perspective. I'm sure Bernie's going to lose some votes from the executives at NBC or CNN. I'm sure he will. But that's what? 20 people? How about the rest of the country? So they they manufacture these narratives, as someone was saying earlier, manufacturing consent. Like they just manufacture these ideas of what people are feeling when they're not feeling it. It's just what these wealthy individuals that are running these stations feel. High Def Steph says, been thinking about Tulsi being a strong candidate for VP. SOS, I have my issues with some of her positions, but she's too much of an asset. Happy belated, by the way. Thank you. I don't think Tulsi is a good VP. At the beginning of the race, the beginning of the primary, I would have said yes. In fact, I'm sure I did say that she was a good potential for VP. But it's just, there's too much baggage there. Even if some of it is not warranted, like her meeting with Assad, I don't think is a big deal. It's okay to meet with people that are, that you don't agree with, as she was saying in the debate. But she has some questionable positions. The idea that she supported Medicare for All, now her actual healthcare is sort of like a public option. It's not worth it. There are other people you can have on as VP that I think are just better choices. Nina Turner is my number one choice, always has been. I think she would be fantastic. Libertarian Socialist says, how would you describe libertarian socialist versus anarcho-capitalism? Look, man, I'm not into super labels. Like, you tell me how you would describe each of them. This is the thing with this is why I don't label myself. I mean, have I talked about how I'm a socialist or I'm a social democrat? Like, labels put you into, like, the fact that people can have an opinion on what each of these are is kind of the problem. Because like what one person's definition is of one of these labels isn't the same definition that someone else is going to use. So I don't care for these labels. I look at, this is how I look at politics. I am for whatever is currently possible towards, whatever is currently possible in this day and age and what we can move towards, today, what we can work towards. So I think looking at policies is what actually matters. What policies do you support? What can you rally people around? You're not going to get non-voters out to vote because you say you're a libertarian socialist, or like, these labels don't mean anything to most people. There's, I guess, fun things to talk about in groups of friends and stuff, but like that are really into this, that are really into these labels. But I care about reaching out to people who don't normally vote. I care about getting people excited to go out and vote. I care about inspiring people with, clips seeing Bernie Sanders doing awesome stuff. Like that's what motivates me. I'm not too into labels or, all that stuff. I think what matters is what policies are you fighting for, and that's the way to move forward. Shelby Hall says, Scorpios of the world unite. Damn right. I turned 45 on October 28th. Happy birthday, David. Happy birthday to you, Shelby. Thank you. All right, let me, I'll get back to Super Chats. I got more stories. This one I like quite a bit, actually. Pramila Jayapal. Now, Pramila Jayapal, before we get to this clip, actually, maybe I'll save this commentary for the clip. All right. So Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal broke down why the public option is not only worse than Medicare for All, but potentially worse than the current system. So I found this to be pretty interesting, and honestly, I think she makes a fantastic case here.
If you have a public option, I am now convinced that that is actually going to be worse for us.
Why?
It is going to cost us more, and it is going to divide the country in such a way that the for-profit private insurance companies will game the system so they get the healthiest people on their plan, the sickest people go to the government plan, and because they're still in the marketplace, they're still driving up costs. Notice that the public option, Medicare buy-in, all of those things, none of those have any way to bring down costs. The question to every candidate out there should not be just to the Medicare for All folks, why does your plan cost what it does? It should be to everyone to say, how are you bringing down costs? And how are you universally covering
Now, I have not heard this argument made as clearly as you just did. And I hope that my viewers tune into this.
Yeah.
You're saying that the public option, which we all fought for it and thought was great, and that Mayor Pete is for, you're saying you've done the math.
Right.
And you think it actually will wind up backfire.
If you have a public option, I am now.
So I think Jayapal is completely on point here. A public option, as she says, will drain that system of resources as the private insurance companies offset the sick people onto the public system. So someone like Pete Buttigieg, who is fighting for, actually, let's even go to Warren. Warren, who is putting out this two-tiered plan where, or this I guess, two pieces of legislation plan where at the beginning she'll have a public option. And then she was saying during the debate how, oh, you're going to have 3 years to, feel it, taste it, whatever that means when it comes to healthcare. And then after 3 years, we're going to fight and we're going to pass Medicare for All. Here's the problem with that. I mean, there's many problems with that, but one problem, you allow private insurance industries a 3-year window to ramp up the fight against Medicare for All in the third year. But also the issue is that you are now giving these private insurance companies all this time to offset all of the sick people onto the public option, drain the public option of resources. You are giving them the opportunity to use the example to destroy Medicare for All and act like, well, see, it's a good thing we didn't go for Medicare for All because look how this public option, which they would call Medicare for All, failed. But that wouldn't be Medicare for All because you wouldn't have everybody paying into one plan. Medicare for All is a single payer system. Everybody pays into the one plan. Everybody's on the same plan. If you have a public option, you still have, oh, this doctor's in this, or with this insurance company, this doctor's over here. I can't go there, can't go there. So it wouldn't actually be Medicare for All. It wouldn't be a good example of what Medicare for All is. So like in Canada, I can go to any doctor, any walk-in clinic, see a doctor. That's a single payer system. You are paying into the system through your taxes, so it's free at the point of use. You can go anywhere. You walk in, show your health card, see a doctor that same day. It doesn't have to be your family doctor. It could be any doctor. That's a single payer system. That wouldn't be able to happen under a public option. You wouldn't be able to go to any clinic and just see a doctor. It wouldn't work like that because you still have the separation of the doctors with private insurance companies. So it's not a system that if you want to prove that Medicare for All will work, a public option is not the way to prove that. In fact, it's a way to hurt the potential of Medicare for All. And that's what Pramila Jayapal is getting at here. But what kind of bothers me is that she's been on the side of both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren with their healthcare plans. So she's been defending Warren's healthcare rollout plan of having these two separate bills, these two separate fights, even though she knows very well, as we see here, that it would be horrible. So, I get what she's doing as a politician. This is what a lot of politicians do. They're calculating. They're thinking, okay, I want to, I don't want to hitch my ride to just one horse and go that way. I want to support or back both of these candidates, both Bernie and Warren, and whoever wins, well, I'm gonna back them. But by doing that, you are not actually fighting for what you really believe in. And you end up becoming just the standard politician, just the calculated politician who can't really make a decision, who isn't really with anybody, really isn't with anything, by trying to be all things to everyone. Now, it's possible Jayapal can get away with it because I don't know how well she really is nationally, or how well known she is nationally. So she doesn't really need to endorse anybody in particular. Like, she's not AOC, where AOC I think would have to. I mean, she has endorsed Bernie, but I mean, if she hadn't endorsed anybody yet, I think we would expect her to endorse somebody. I mean, she has the power to really move votes. I'm not sure if Jayapal has that power, which is maybe why she's kind of playing this stand back approach. But clearly she knows a public option would not be a good plan. And a public option is a part of Elizabeth Warren's plan. So I don't know why you can't just back Bernie when he's the one with the actual Medicare for All plan. All right. Oh, man. I got a few more stories to go to. Yeah, let me get to the next story before I get to these super chats. Oh, we got Trump now. I don't do a lot of Trump, but this one, I think even people that are kind of tired of Trump, as I am, even you, will find this entertaining because of how absurd it is. Donald Trump was on Fox and Friends, where he discussed why he doesn't like former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch. Now, this is some real dictator crap right here. You will maybe laugh and cry at what Donald Trump says here.
This ambassador that, everybody says is so wonderful, she wouldn't hang my picture in the embassy, okay? She's in charge of the embassy. She wouldn't hang it. It took like a year and a half or 2 years for her to get the picture up. She said bad things about me. She wouldn't defend me, and I have the right to change an ambassador. And Rudy didn't say good things, but he wasn't crazy about it. It wasn't like a major topic. But I have the right to change. This was an Obama person didn't want to hang my picture in the embassy. It's standard is you put the president of the United States picture in an embassy. This was not an angel, this woman, okay? There are a lot of things that she did that I didn't like. And we will talk about that at some time. Okay. But I just want to let you know, this was not a baby that we're dealing with.
There was one.
This ambassador.
Okay, before we watch it again, because I have to watch it again with it zoomed in and see their faces. I mean, what is this? Like, Trump didn't like the ambassador because she wouldn't hang his picture. He is so soft. He is such a little baby. How can you possibly be a leader of anything? I mean, let alone the president, but just like, how could you lead a business? How can you be a man? Like, how can you be anything that has some power? How can you be anybody that has any power and be this insecure? It is unbelievable to me. He is he's a crazy nut, but he has some serious issues, clearly. Let's watch this again, because I want to watch their, I'll go down here. I want to watch their facial expressions. Because Steve Ducey especially, I think, Steve Ducey here, I think even he knows this is nuts, what Trump is saying. He's kind of the one that is, I mean, he's totally like on board for all this, but he knows that what is going on right now, and what Trump is saying is just completely insane. I'm sure he knows Trump is a criminal, but his job is to defend him. But watch their faces.
This ambassador that, everybody says is so wonderful, she wouldn't hang my picture in the embassy, okay? She's in charge of the embassy. She wouldn't hang it. It took like a year and a half or 2 years for her to get the picture up. She said bad things about me. She wouldn't defend me, and I have the right to change an ambassador. And Rudy didn't say good things, but he wasn't crazy about it. It wasn't like a major topic. But I have the right to change. This was an Obama person didn't want to hang my picture in the embassy. It's standard is you put the president of the United States picture in an embassy. This was not an angel, this woman, okay? There are a lot of things that she did that I didn't like.
They look really uncomfortable.
We will talk about that at some time.
Okay.
But I just want to let you know, this was not a baby that we're dealing with.
There was one.
A lot of things. She did a lot of things I didn't like. Like, if there was actually more, he would have mentioned it. He just focused on the fact that she didn't hang his picture up. What a total nut. Sometimes you have to really just stop and think, wow, this guy is the president. Because we've all gotten used to it. I've gotten used to it. But every now and then we see a clip like this and it reminds us, oh yeah, this guy is just completely nuts. So there's my Trump video of the month. I really hate covering Trump. I just feel like it's all so obvious. Yeah, he's a criminal, obviously. He's a horrible person, obviously. Like, I get these impeachment hearings are important. I get there's a whole process to this. But we all already know that he did all of this. Like, it's just, for me to cover it, I wouldn't know what to say. Because I feel like I'd be talking to a wall. Like, don't we all already know this? Isn't this obvious? Like, the videos I try to do, my hope is that people that don't normally watch me can see them and maybe get convinced of, whatever I'm saying, like usually supporting Bernie or something. But like when it comes to Trump, to me, I just think it's so obvious on its face that he is a corrupt criminal, that he's a liar, he's self-obsessed, he's self-absorbed, he's what else? Lacks confidence. I mean, he's such a weird character. And the fact that people like that guy and think, oh yeah, Donald Trump, he's my leader. Oh, he's a strong leader. He's so strong that he was bothered by an ambassador not hanging his picture up. How can you possibly think that Trump is anything but a total fucking buffoon? Okay. Let's go to Cardi B. Always enjoy Cardi B. All right. So Cardi B, who's already backed, I guess, I assume she's officially backed Bernie Sanders. She says she supports him publicly. Cardi B praised Bernie Sanders during a recent Q&A with Vogue magazine. So let me first show you the tweet, because this wasn't just, a random video somewhere. This was apparently trending on YouTube, the video where she said this. So here's the tweet here. The number one trending video on YouTube, so this is from the 20th, is Cardi B's Vogue magazine 73 questions. She took some time to talk politics, including her support for Bernie Sanders, who she calls a natural humanitarian. Let's watch this here.
You are feeling the burn right now.
Oh, feel the burn.
Bernie Sanders, you are feeling that burn. What about him excites you the most?
What I like about Bernie Sanders is that he's been doing this for a long time. He's a natural humanitarian. You know that there's people that just care for the world. They just want to take care of people. That's their passion. They don't do it for money. They do it because that's their passion.
Yeah.
And he's been doing this for a long time, not just to become a president and get good votes. That's just how he naturally is.
So I think this is an important point that really makes Bernie Sanders stand out from anybody else in the field. on top of obviously his record, everything else is grassroots support, but the fact that he is a real person, that he actually cares about people. I mean, you look at how Bernie Sanders approaches this campaign, approaches his events where he brings people on stage, where he has a whole Q&A, talks to people about their experiences, how the system is screwing them. You compare that to Joe Biden, where Joe Biden has a protester discussing or criticizing Biden over deportations, and Biden tells that protester to vote for Donald Trump. Joe Biden is a man with no compassion, doesn't care about people. Bernie Sanders actually cares about people, is a humanitarian. He's not a typical politician doing this for votes, as Cardi B says. He actually cares for people. This is why he's a once-in-a-lifetime candidate. Because usually people that make their way up the chain in politics and make it to the point where they can actually run for president, they're usually people that have played the game, played the system, that have, amassed support from massive corporations, wealthy donors, private interests to be able to get to where they are. Bernie did not do that. Bernie, his support came naturally. A lot of people didn't even know who Bernie Sanders was until 2016 when he ran against Hillary Clinton. So you're talking about somebody who's had a 40-year career of fighting for people, and then just now, near the last portion of his life, is he getting the recognition that he actually deserves for everything that he's done, for his fight his entire life. So this is a natural humanitarian, and it's really what sets Bernie apart from everybody else in the race. Now, let's get to, did I skip something? Oh, I don't think I wrote it down. I want to do a clip, show a clip of Bernie at the debate. Actually, I'm going to have two clips now of Bernie at this debate. A couple things I didn't get to in my breakdown. I mean, my breakdown, 36 minutes long, and I still didn't get to everything I wanted to discuss. My stomach keeps rumbling, and it's bothering me. I hope the mic's not picking it up. Okay. So first, let's get to a little comedy. Oh, you know what? No, that's why I didn't see it. It's actually part of another story that I'm going to do. Okay. I prepped a lot for this live stream today. By the way, I do hear super chats. I will get to them. I'll get to more after this this next segment. So at the recent November debate, I thought Bernie Sanders had the best closing remarks. Now, it's no surprise I thought that. I thought that in every single debate so far. But his closing remarks in this debate, I think he made them a little more personal. And by doing that, I think he showed a side of himself that a lot of people don't normally get to see if they aren't paying attention to Bernie at his rallies on a normal basis. So I want to show you his closing remarks, and I'm also going to bring in another clip from the debate that also goes to the fact that Bernie is more human than anybody else on stage. But first, let me show you this his closing remarks.
Thank you. Let me say a word about myself. Unusual as it may seem. I am the son of an immigrant, young man of 17, who came to this country without a nickel in his pocket. I have some sense of the immigrant experience. I will stand with the 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country. At the age of 21, as a member of a civil rights group at the University of Chicago, I was arrested, spent the night in jail, and I have been committed to the fight against all forms of discrimination, racial discrimination, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, and religious bigotry. I will lead an administration that will look like America, will end the divisiveness brought by Trump and bring us together. During this campaign, I am proud to say that I have received more campaign contributions than any candidate at this point in an election in American history. Over 4 million contributions, averaging $18 apiece. If you want to be part of a movement that is not only going to beat Trump, but transform America, that doesn't have a super PAC, doesn't do fundraisers at wealthy people's homes, please join us at BernieSanders.com. Thank you.
That was great. So I thought Bernie did there what he's needed to do for a while. He's needed to discuss his grassroots support. He's needed to bring up the fact that he has the most donations out of anybody in the race. That this is somebody who is building a movement. That's why this candidate is separate from everybody else in the race. He's not just about winning the presidency for himself. This is about actually transforming America for the people. You do that with the grassroots movement. Like any big change in history, you look back, it takes a movement of people to get things done. So you have him bringing that up in his closing remarks, in addition to the fact, bringing up, who he is as a person, his history of fighting discrimination, getting arrested, being the son of an immigrant. I mean, he has this life experience that he rarely touches on. I'm glad he brought it up here. And then he folds that also into the fact that he's grown this grassroots movement. And on top of it all, he just comes off being a human. I mean, it kind of starts off with a joke. Like he starts off by saying, let me say a bit about myself, unusual as it may seem. Like he's just naturally funny. Like he doesn't have, and another example of that was also during this debate, right here. So Bernie Sanders cracked this joke just randomly during this debate. So unlike a lot of politicians that crack jokes where they're written down, they're planned, they practice them, Bernie's just a naturally funny dude. So watch what he says here when Joe Biden's talking.
He has given North Korea everything they wanted, creating the legitimacy by having a meeting with Kim Jong-un, who's a thug, although he points out that I'm a rabid dog, need to be beaten with a stick. Recently was his comment.
Other than that, you like him.
Other than that, I like him. And uniting Japan and Australia and...
So it's just like, I'm sorry that was kind of low. I'll change the audio in post. But this is just who Bernie is. He's just a dude. Like, he's just a normal guy. And he's a normal guy that cares about people, that happens to get into politics when he was younger and is a lifelong independent, has always fought against the establishment, be it corporate establishment, the Democratic Party establishment, the Republican Party establishment, the media establishment. He's always been a guy fighting for the people against the powerful. That's who Bernie Sanders is. As Cardi B has said, he's a natural humanitarian. I mean, it's just so obvious. In fact, let me end here before I get to all the super chats. The last segment here, the Bernie Sanders campaign put out this video of him. So this is kind of Bernie's history throughout the years. It's about 3 minutes long. It's fantastic. I want to share this with you if you haven't seen it already. And even if you have seen it, it's worth watching again. There's a lot to take in here. So let me play this.
Bernie's election to Congress transformed the political landscape of Vermont.
People think about Vermont as a very blue state, but at the time Bernie was first running, that seat had been held by Republicans for decades.
He became the major opposition to the Republican candidate, and he ultimately won that race.
His message to the people is always the same, is that the rural communities are the heart and soul of America. He may be originally from New York, but he certainly understands the ground that I stand on.
An independent who has shown growing power in recent years.
Bernie's work in the 90s earned him the term Amendment King.
We passed amendment after amendment after amendment.
He was so effective at bringing together coalitions to support the needs of all Vermonters.
During a 10-year period of Republican control in the U.S. House, he passed more amendments by recorded vote than any other member.
And he was able to get support for things like community health centers.
Bernie has, of course, always tried to get a universal health care system. He's done the next best thing.
One of his amendments got $100 million for community health centers. He talks to them about the real economic issues facing them.
Bernie's always been aware of the value of the family farm, and he's always stood up for good food and the people that produce it. The Dairy Compact was one of the biggest ones, but that was one of the issues that gave fair prices to farmers that we could survive on.
Which really solidified an economic basic quality of life for our dairy farmers.
A number of companies like IBM in Vermont were trying to create what's called a cash balance pension system, which harms older and older workers.
That were being discriminated against based on their age. We need to save their pensions. And so we launched a big fight. Restored $320 million in pension benefits to 130,000 workers. It took a movement of IBM workers to demand that IBM stop cutting their pension benefits.
Bernie was always right dead on the money, and as compassionate as any person I've ever run into.
People have faith in Bernie.
If they know that Bernie Sanders fights for them, that he's fighting for their family, that their lives can be better if the policies that Bernie is advocating are put into place.
And Bernie is a person that I feel will bring the whole country together.
Bernie stood up for our children, health care, our environment, and Bernie reaches people across the political spectrum, and that's how he wins.
So there you go. He has a history of fighting for people. I know, we all know that already, but it's hard to really communicate that in a 30-second answer in a debate. Like, you need videos like this to really showcase that. Like, you share this video with friends and family that maybe aren't engaged in politics or maybe support somebody else. Show them that. I mean, nobody has this record. It's just a matter of communicating this to people. And at the same time, showing people polling that shows him defeating Trump, shows him being the only one to defeat Trump in Iowa, in Michigan by the highest numbers, nationally in that recent Emerson poll I showed you earlier. I mean, you combine that with who Bernie is, who he's fought for, that's it. That's how you get his support. That's how that's how you grow his support. So there is, like, I have a hard time understanding why people wouldn't support Bernie Sanders just because of who he is. But I think a lot of it is because people are into this mental frame thinking, well, he can't defeat Trump. How can a socialist defeat Donald Trump? They're going to call you socialist anyways. They've called Democrats socialist for years. Like, it doesn't matter what labels do. It matters who the person is. It matters what the person says. I mean, a great example of that is when Bernie went on Joe Rogan's podcast, and you read the comments on that podcast, insanely positive. Tons of people saying, I had no idea Bernie was this kind of person, because they've been fed this narrative that Bernie's some crazy old man with this crazy old socialist, whatever. But when they actually see the man and see him discuss what he cares about, what he's fighting for, why he's fighting for it, it becomes obvious this is a real human who actually cares for people. And he's real. He's not pretending to support things he doesn't support. He's a real guy. So when you combine that, as I said, with the polling, showing him destroying Trump, then you have a winning message. All right, super chat time. We got through a lot today. quite a bit. So let me reset myself here. All right, so let's go to the Super Chats page. All right, so luckily I've gotten a lot of them so far. But keep sending them in. I'm going to get all of them until I got to go. But I'm good for time right now. Okay, where was I? What do you mean sends a super chat in saying, "Happy birthday, Bro Beans." I'll make a video about you. Oh, awesome. Check out the What Do You Mean YouTube page. She's fantastic. Cadell DeJoy sends super chat in saying, Bernie can still attack indirectly. For instance, he can say he's the only one to do this, this, and this. I really think the media will attack. Let me reread that again. Bernie can still attack indirectly. For instance, he can say he's the only one to do this, this, and this. I really think the media will attack him. Well, yeah. I'm not sure what your last sentence means. But yeah, they're going to attack him anyways. But the thing is, they don't even attack him, really. I mean, they do, but they largely ignore him. That's kind of the issue with Bernie Sanders, with their coverage of him, is that when they do talk about him, I mean, they don't. Like, that's the problem. Yeah, there was I wish I saved it. Van Jones, after the debate on Thursday or Wednesday, he said something quick about Bernie Sanders, and then they went to break. Like, nobody was talking about Bernie Sanders at all. He brings up, hey, Bernie Sanders has the most support from black people under 30, and, you know, he has a really solid support base. He had a great debate. And then people are just like, yep. And then they went to commercial. Like, they don't spend any time on him. It's obvious. So it's not even just about the media attacks. But the thing is, if he does stick his neck out and would go after somebody hard, they are going to attack him. But at the same time, I don't think he should measure himself based on that. Like, he shouldn't hold himself back because of what the media is going to say, because they're going to, as you say, attack him anyways. So if he wants to attack, you know, Joe Biden, as I think he should, then he should do it. Especially because the records are so, you know, different. Like, it's Joe Biden's an easy target. Pete Buttigieg, you have to sort of, like, if you want to attack him, if he becomes an actual threat at some point, you have to sort of explain the situation. I mean, for the moderators, again, to not bring up the South Carolina story, that involves some discussion. That involves some kind of description of what actually happened there. So it's a lot tougher to attack somebody over something like that, but it can still be done. But as I said, because he has the money to have him last throughout this entire primary, he can kind of hold back right now and kind of keep his attacks till it gets near the end, where whoever he's up against, I'm going to assume it's going to be mostly Biden, or likely Biden and Elizabeth Warren. Then yeah, that's when you kind of bring out the attacks, when you really get deep into the primary. But I don't know. He could attack now. He could attack later. He could never attack and still win. It's kind of, there are many ways to go about this. Carlos Santos says David should do a fans only. Why? And then there's like a bunch of laughing faces. I don't know what that means. Fans only stream. I don't know what that means, but yeah, maybe. If you mean like backers only stream, I don't know. I wouldn't do that. 99 Nation Video says, can you commit to start talking about this election in its proper light? We are literally voting against our extinction. It needs to be said often. I hear you, because you're correct. The problem is that language, I don't think, works on a lot of people. If you sound alarmist to people that are typically not engaged in these issues, they just tune you out. So I don't, like, you're right. You are voting against our extinction. You need a president who's actually going to, you know, deliver a massive overhaul to society through a Green New Deal like Bernie supports. But there's a fine line in terms of how you deliver that message, because the people that already know that, like you, it's not like you're already engaged. So I'm not going to engage you more by talking about that. But the people that are not engaged, I don't know if you convince them by saying, if I come out here saying, you guys got to vote. I mean, you're voting against our extinction. Like, it's just, I guess there's a way to deliver that without sounding, too alarmist and potentially getting people to just kind of, or getting them to zone out and just stop paying attention. Ryan Sipe says, you are an awesome YouTuber. Oh, thank you, Ryan. Very kind. Otto Kopeski, are you Polish? I think you're Polish. Oh no, I think SKI is Polish. I'm not sure about SKY. What green screen software or production software do you use? Great show, by the way. I tune in every week. So I use Wirecast for live streaming, and it has built-in chroma key, so I do that, and that's what I use. And my green screen is just like a felt green screen, so it works pretty well. Thank you, Otto. Carla Santos again says, did you see Biden sniffing the guy's fart? You're talking about that meme that went up where it was like Eric Swalwell. I think you're talking about this. So Eric Swalwell possibly farted on Chris Matthews' show, though I think it was Chris Matthews. I did a video on this early in the week. But there's like a meme showing Joe Biden sniffing Eric Swalwell. Yeah, I saw that. I'm not going to find it now, but that was funny. D Big Fish 1988 sends a $2 super chat with no message. Thank you, Big Fish. Tobias sends 10 euros in, saying, surely you'll continue to look amazing far into your 40s. I'm watching from Finland. We have a way better healthcare system than the U.S., and any problems are thanks to the right wing undermining it. Yeah, that seems to be the case for all these countries that have universal systems. If there's any problems with it, it's usually because of the right wing doing something about it. But it's, again, our problems are so minuscule compared to what Americans have with their healthcare system. So like, I feel bad even, bringing up our issues when I'm talking to Americans. Now, if I do a Canadian-centric video and it's about healthcare, then yeah, I'm going to be, I'm going to bring up the issues and discuss it. But because my audience is largely American, and when I talk about healthcare, it's largely from a Canadian perspective, there is just no comparison between, what you have in your country and what Canada has and what the U.S. has. A lot more coming in now. Where was I? Holy crap. Here I am. Ryan Sipe again sends a $9 super chat. Thank you. Saying, please spread the word and or consider making a video about Andrew Romanov. He's running for U.S. Senate. Sunrise Movement recently endorsed him. Andrew Romanov. The name sounds very familiar. Let's check him out. Where's that coming from? So he has an auto video on his page. Not a huge fan of that. So now he has to really impress me. Let me bring this up. This is Andrew Romanov. So since the Sunrise Movement backed him, then I'm going to assume he's a great candidate. They've also backed Bernie Sanders. So let me go to his Twitter page, because usually I can kind of figure more out from there. That's his Facebook page. All right. There we go. Sunrise Movement proudly endorses Andrew Romanov for U.S. Senate. We could not be more excited to support Romanov's progressive campaign to champion the Green New Deal on behalf of all. Oh yeah, that's why I recognized him. Yes, because oh man, I forgot the other guy's name. The guy that ran for president, Hickenlooper. Because you have Hickenlooper running in that race as well, right? So that's why, yeah, Romanov's the obvious choice there. Hickenlooper's garbage. So yeah, maybe I'll do a video about him, because it is important to make sure that people understand, because you're going to have someone in this race who is more well known because he ran for president, but that doesn't mean he's the candidate to vote for. So definitely, Andrew Romanov, if you're in California, check him out, support him. I trust Sunrise Movement there. Okay, next super chat. Andrew Dwyer says, if Fox moderated a debate, would it be much worse? Honestly, if Fox moderated a Democratic debate, it might be better. Like you saw when they had Bernie Sanders on, that was one of his best television moments when Bernie was on Fox News. He just wiped the floor with those hosts. So yeah, I don't know if it could be much worse. And the funny thing is, I think Fox would almost feel like, because they have this opportunity, they have to at least try and sound a little more objective. So, which is something that I think is more true now than if you had Roger Ailes running it. But yeah, so you could potentially see them asking questions that are tougher towards the other candidates. I think they for sure would have brought up the Pete Buttigieg stuff in South Carolina if this was a Fox debate. So you have MSNBC, CNN treating Pete and Biden largely with kid gloves. In a Fox debate, you're going to have them actually go after those candidates. So I think you're right. A Fox debate wouldn't be worse and could even be better than what we saw from MSNBC. Daniel Ryan says Pete Buttigieg is that corporate hack backup. Pete Buttigieg is that corporate hack backup. Yeah, you mean backup to Joe Biden? Yeah, pretty much. I think they're seeing Biden. I was going to say they're seeing Biden drop, but Biden's up and down. Who knows where Biden's going to end up? But Pete Buttigieg is definitely kind of the backup here if Biden doesn't work out. Though now you have Bloomberg coming in, Deval Patrick coming in. They're kind of, it looks like they're getting worried because they see the enthusiasm is behind Bernie Sanders and somewhat to Elizabeth Warren as well. So they're getting worried. So, but I don't understand how bringing Bloomberg into the race or Deval Patrick is going to help them. Doesn't that just take support away from Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg? It's not. If their idea here is to hurt Bernie or hurt Warren, maybe Deval Patrick will hurt Warren because they're from the same state. But when it comes to Bloomberg, I bring in all the billionaires, please. More billionaires should enter the race. It's just going to help Bernie. Platitude Platypus says Tulsi destroyed Pete. Kyle Kalinske has a great video on it. Well, there you go. Thank you for advertising Kyle's videos on my channel. But no, I'm sure he does. Yeah, Tulsi did. She could have gone even farther, I think. But she went further than anybody else did on stage. So I'm glad she brought up what she brought up. But it was amazing to see how the media spun that. Even after Tulsi, went after Pete, all the media is talking about afterwards. Tulsi Gabbard met with Bashir al-Assad. Oh my God. They didn't talk about the substance of what she said about Pete Buttigieg. So it's almost hopefully most people tuned out after the debate was over and didn't watch the coverage of it, because if they watched the coverage afterwards, they would have completely forgot what Tulsi Gabbard was even saying on stage against Pete Buttigieg. Saving one cata, what's her name? Saving one cata to time says, I feel Bernie knows if he calls out Dems, he will have a harder time getting through Dem convention. Wasn't a clause in new rules about Dem loyalty? I don't think that's why he's doing it, though. You have other candidates going after, I don't know. I think you have other candidates going after other people worse. At least earlier, the first two debates, you had Eric Swalwell go after Pete Buttigieg. There definitely was more, the third debate, they were going after Elizabeth Warren a lot. So I don't, and I get it, they are Democrats, so maybe it's easier for them to go after other Democrats. But the Dem loyalty is just about being the Democratic nominee if he wins the nomination. I think that's what the language says. So, I'm not sure what the intention of it was, but the language just means you have to be the Democratic nominee if you win the nomination. Bernie for Us says, Tulsi missed the chance to say to Pete, you got the judgment, but I got the balls. You got the judgment, but I got the balls. I mean, I don't know if that really would have went over well, but sure, why not? Thanks, Bernie, for us. Big donation as well, $10. Thank you. Citizen01 says, what do you think would happen if candidate called out Biden's mental decline on stage? If a candidate called out Biden's mental decline on stage. Didn't that kind of happen? Someone did that recently. Castro. It was Julian Castro. Julian Castro, I'm pretty sure it was him, at a recent debate, called out Biden's mental decline. And we saw what happened. The media did not like it. At least portions of the media didn't like it. So, they were saying, oh, it's a low blow to acknowledge the fact that Joe Biden has lost his damn mind. How? How is that a low blow? What's wrong with that? It would have helped if, or maybe it wouldn't have helped, but when Trump was running, if more people talked about how this guy's a complete lunatic, it may have hurt him, though, let's be honest, it wouldn't have hurt him at all. But when it comes to the Democratic nominee, when it comes to the Democratic voter base, I think there is something to be said that acknowledging the fact that Biden is not well mentally, acknowledging that on stage would hurt him more than it would hurt Trump, as an example. 99 Nation Videos says, I'm Pramilla's constituent, and I assure you she's making us crazy. We are thinking of replacing... I wouldn't replace her. We are thinking of replacing her for browbeating us to accept Warren's nonsense plans. But she still supports no, don't replace Pramila Jayapal. She's fantastic. Like, the criticisms I have of her are just, like, strategic criticisms. They're not, like, when it comes down to it, we all know where she stands. Jayapal's one of the strong ones. There's no reason to go after her right now as people that are largely on her side. Bernie for Us says, nobody, Joe Biden says, Blafrican American. Yeah, I had that in my debate breakdown. Biden's not doing too well. There's another piece of that I didn't cover. I didn't cut it either, so I can't bring it up now. But where Biden's talking about the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, and he talks about how, you can't raise your fist to a woman. We have to keep punching at it and punching at it and punching at it. It's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, he's just so completely God. He had no idea how he was coming off in that moment. But even just bringing up the fact, like, yeah, we all know, like, we're not back in, like, the 1960s. We understand you shouldn't raise your fist to a woman. Like, for him to bring that up on stage in 2019 and then, push the point home by saying we got to keep punching at it and punching out. Unbelievable. He's just, I don't know, a barrel of jokes. He's just a crazy dude. I'm running out of ways to describe Joe Biden. Carla Santos says, Bernie Ariana 2020. That's right. Ariana Grande backed Bernie Sanders. I did not know that Ariana Grande was awesome. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Judging from her music, I just figured she's like a typical pop star. I have to be honest with you. I don't really care for her music all that much. That doesn't mean she's great. She's obviously, well liked. People love her. But the fact that she came out and backed Bernie, awesome. Totally on board. I mean, I have to admit, I'm sure it's a case for a lot of people as well. When you see a celebrity have good politics, it makes you actually want to check out their work more. It's definitely worked on me. So yeah, I love it. Lloyd Tucker says, when arguing for Medicare for all, the biggest argument I run into is death panels or doctors pushing medical assisted suicide. They usually show me a news piece. I haven't found a solid retort, but suggest supplemental ins. Okay. Good question. By the way, $10. Thank you. Very generous. All right, Lloyd. So next time somebody tells you this crap when arguing, so death panels, that doesn't No, I have to be honest with you. As a Canadian, I barely know what that means. I only know of the term because I've heard Americans talk about it when describing Obamacare. Like that's otherwise, I don't know what that's not a thing that comes up here. So death panels, I don't know. People aren't forced to kill themselves or die because like why would they? So here's what you should come back with. There is so there's different ways of dividing healthcare. So, there's rationing, I guess you could say. So an argument that may come up because of these death panels or doctors pushing medical assisted suicide, which does not happen. That definitely is not a thing. Neither of these things are things. But okay, there's rationing in every healthcare system, right? Because there's only so many doctors, so many hospitals, there's rationing. But in the American system, rationing healthcare is based on wealth. If you have the money, you get the healthcare. Rationing in universal systems is based on need. If you're about to die, you get the surgery immediately. You get the healthcare immediately. And in my case, look, for just simple doctor appointments, I have same-day appointments. So I call my doctor, see her that day. If she's not available or she's busy, whatever's happening, I can go to any walk-in clinic and see any doctor, because it's a single-payer system. We all pay into one system. So there's no there's no downside compared to what the American system is. The American system of this for-profit healthcare system. How do you defend a for-profit healthcare system just on the merits alone? How do you defend a system where you have health insurance companies making money by denying people coverage? How do you defend that? There is no way to defend that. And then you can go to all the benefits of Medicare for All system. It's free at the point of use. You never have to think about healthcare until you need it. You don't have to be stuck into a job that you don't like because you have great healthcare. You can leave that job. You still have healthcare. Be unemployed looking for a job. Still have healthcare. Start a business. Still have healthcare. Hire people. They have healthcare. Not because you gave them healthcare, but because they have healthcare guaranteed to them at the federal level. So all of this is just like, because I live in this system, a lot of these benefits are often lost on me because I don't think about it. And that is, again, one of the biggest benefits of a universal healthcare system, of a single payer system, is you don't have to think about healthcare ever until you need it. And when you need it, you go. I've had surgery. It was minor surgery, so it could be planned ahead of time. And so it was scheduled ahead of time. It was like 2 months later. I went and got my surgery, came home. That was it. If I needed major surgery, if I needed like life-saving surgery, I would get it immediately. So it all depends on what you're doing, what you're getting, what healthcare you need. But generally, death panels and like doctors pushing medical assisted suicide are maybe two of the worst ways that somebody can defend the for-profit healthcare system, because those aren't even things. So I don't even know what those arguments are. Completely insane. But thank you, Lloyd, for bringing that up, because it is important to have arguments against people who are just clearly brainwashed. The people you're talking to are brainwashed by whoever's talking to them about healthcare. It's good to have arguments against those people. So you could simply say those things don't exist, and there's rationing in every system. Ours being, you as an American, rationing is based on wealth, whereas in Canada, it's based on need. DCK Punk says, do Bernie versus Bernie. I did it earlier. Should have tuned in earlier. That was James Adomian and Bernie Sanders. James Adomian, comedian, playing Bernie Sanders, talking to Bernie Sanders. If you missed that earlier, you can rewind at the beginning of the video, near the beginning. That's one of the first things I talked about. It's a hilarious clip. They're both funny. I mean, oddly enough, both the comedian and Bernie Sanders are hilarious. That Beastism says, I have a hypothetical question I would like answered. If Nina Turner versus AOC for the presidency of 2024-28, who would you support? That's a question I can't answer, because you have to look and see what they have done before that. I mean, yeah. I don't. How about both of them? How about that? How about, Nina Turner and AOC on the same ticket? How about that? Silas Greystone says, Bernie has fought his whole life for your rights and your legacy. Now we all have to pay. I was pronouncing that weird because of these capitals. Now we all have the chance to pay him back with our vote. Yep. Agreed with you. Or I agree with you, Silas. You tell I'm getting tired here. But keep them coming. I'm down for answering more. Carla Santos again. Amazing support. Thank you, Carla. Thoughts on Julia Roberts playing Harriet Tubman? I heard about that story and I didn't know if it was real, but I looked it up and it appears it was considered. But she's not though, right? I think someone else is. So Julia Roberts was apparently considered to play Harriet Tubman. Amazing. There's no words for that. Like, totally insane, I guess, is my response to that. Carlos Santos again says, I meant OnlyFans. Research it. Oh, to your previous comment? Okay, I have to go back and look into what you're saying. Henry Volt 35 says, maybe we should confront the other candidates on his behalf. Like in the same fashion of that one lady demanding Joe Biden not to take corporate money. On whose behalf? I know you guys put the super chats when I'm talking normally and you're like relating to what your super chat to what I'm saying, but I don't know who he is in this case. Do you mean Biden? We should confront the other candidates on or Bernie's behalf, like in the same fashion of that one lady demanding Joe Biden to not take corporate money. Yeah. No. Yeah. If that's what you mean, totally. Yeah. People are already doing it. Confronting politicians. Joe Biden's the easiest one to confront because he's just horrible. And he appears pretty open to talking to people at least, but he has no idea what to say when he gets confronted with these criticisms. But thank you, Henry. Ken B says, Dave would love to hear your thoughts on whether the DNC will actually use its electoral college to choose someone other than Bernie if the votes split. This is a discussion or a question that's been brought up before. I don't think it's worth talking about it unless it happens. Like, there's so many hypotheticals in that question alone. I don't care for these questions because it's too much. It's a lot of assuming the worst, and that doesn't motivate me. Assuming the worst doesn't motivate me. And it's just, yeah. Like anything's possible. We could be hit by, be hit by a comet tomorrow. We're all dead. Anything's possible. Jen Pepper says, hope y'all have a great weekend. You too, Jen. Thanks for joining. Zachary Fluke says, let the record show that Jesus Christ was a socialist octopus. What? Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Dull. Well, he was definitely a socialist. I think you lose me at octopus. There's a lot coming in. I truly thank you all for the support. Like, this is what keeps this channel going. Thank you. I just lost my spot. DB says, I hope Bernie and his volunteers focus on people having their choice of doctor instead of a choice between limiting health insurance mafia plans more often. Let me read that again. I hope Bernie and his volunteers focus on people having their choice of doctor instead of a choice between limiting health insurance mafia plans more often. Yeah, that has to be the focus. That under a Medicare for All system, you have complete free choice. Like this, I talked about this on a different recent video about healthcare. Who loves private insurance in any industry? Like, I don't have health insurance, obviously, because I have it guaranteed to me. But like, I have auto insurance. Do I love my auto insurance company? Like, who loves private insurance companies? It's just insane. Like, does that line even, I don't get how that line even works on people. It is so crazy. Like, I guess if you have really great insurance through your employer, then you're worried, oh, I'm going to lose my doctor if they replace us with Medicare for all. No, you would have your doctor still because everybody's on the same plan. So not only do you have your doctor, but maybe you liked another doctor in a different insurance plan. Now you can get that doctor because they're freed up and they're all under the same system. So yeah, Medicare for all is freedom. I think that should be a line that's used more often. Medicare for all is freedom. Leroy Beresford says, I'm taking Kamala's black card. I think she had the VP spot in mind when she could have clearly ended Pete by bringing up South Carolina and the Douglas bill. Yeah, Kamala had an opportunity. I didn't touch on that in my breakdown, but Kamala had the opportunity to take on Pete Buttigieg. She was almost there. She kind of mentioned, what did she mention? The Kenya photo, but she could have really got into it of what Pete Buttigieg did. Look, if she actually cared about growing her support, then she would have done that, because I think she could have peeled off support from Pete Buttigieg. Both of these candidates have weak support. So by her going after Pete, she could have got a lot of his supporters. But she appears now to think she's not going to win. And maybe if Pete wins, I'll be in his administration. So I'm going to be kind to him. So that's the gamble she's taken, where she could have potentially came back in this race and taken the 4th spot back, but she lost her opportunity. Dwayne Bramble says, happy Earth Strong. FYI, Bernie did say he would choose a woman of color for VP. Yeah, he did basically say that. When he was in an interview with the Young Turks, I think Anna asked him actually, who would you choose potentially as VP? And then Bernie said something like, probably somebody who's not the same gender as I am, someone that has, more diverse experience than I do. So I think, and maybe he said it or more times since then. I haven't seen it, but I think it would make sense. I mean, you have to. I mean, representation is very important. Even though Bernie's clearly the best candidate in this race, you need somebody on the ticket with you who can represent a different perspective. Having that life experience means a lot. I know a lot of people in these progressive left-wing circles kind of, throw that aside, but no, it is important. It's incredibly important to have that represented. And you see Bernie's campaign, how diverse it is. I mean, he has the first Muslim campaign manager of any major campaign ever in the country. And not to mention, I mean, his co-chairs, his whole campaign is incredibly diverse, the people that are running it. So that is what his administration would look like if he wins. It's going to be incredibly diverse. It's going to represent all kinds of views, but views of people that are actually living in reality, that listen to scientists, that care about the facts, that care about people. So it's not simply, representation for representation's sake, but it's actually representation of people that actually also care about the issues as he does. So that's what matters here. It's not so because I think people often get lost in this whole identity thing because of the way it's been used, typically by Democrats. The way it was used in 2016 with Hillary Clinton. It was all simply about just pure identity, just purely the fact that this could be the first female president. It was all just about that. But there is a way to discuss identity politics that isn't just that, but actually representation in addition to life experience, in addition to people that actually care about the issues, are looking at the fact, looking at data, looking at science, are humans. So yeah, there is a way to look at identity politics that we need to acknowledge and recognize the importance of. Ryan Sipes says, my live chat joke. Delaney will crush Bernie. Ha ha ha. That's pretty funny. It's a pretty good joke. Has he dropped out? Has Delaney dropped? I don't think he's dropped out, has he? Isn't he still in the race? Unbelievable. I think he's still in the race because I don't think he's dropped. Yeah, I don't think he's dropped out. I don't even want to look it up. I'm just amused by the fact that I think he's still in the race because last I checked, he was. DB says, reaction to Adolph Reed Jr.'s shock statement on Rising. I didn't see his shock statement on Rising. What was his shock statement on Rising? Well, now I got to look it up. Is it about Obama? Okay, I can't go hunting through this. It's 9 minutes long. But Adolph Reed Jr. response to Obama warns establishment won't let Bernie win. Well, they're going to try to not let him win for sure. Like, yeah, I mean, they're doing it right now, watching the media coverage. So they're definitely trying to not let him win. But you can't predict the future. It doesn't mean he's not going to, just because they're going to try to stop him. But I'm not sure if that was even the statement you're talking about. But I can't go searching too long. DCK Punk again says, for-profit healthcare is a death panel. Yeah. Just say that. You're right. The fact that 45,000 people a year died due to a lack of access to healthcare, there's a point to bring up. The American system is already a death panel because people can't afford healthcare. Not to mention the 500,000 people a year that go bankrupt due to healthcare costs. David Lamb says, do you think maybe Ariana is just supporting Bernie because his supporters fit her demographics? I mean, it's fine either way if Bernie gets support. No. I don't think that's the reason. I think she is the demographics of her supporters as well. Like it's not like Ariana Grande is like 50 years old. Like she's also a young person. So I think she supports Bernie because she actually she cares about the issues. Carla Santos says John Idarola cries after making love. What? I really got to screen some of these. I don't know why you would super chat that to me, but that's okay. Black Dragonfly 89 says $10. Thank you very much. Says Mayor Pete's fake black support. Bernie should do the same thing with a fake bill. Expose the media's bias and Pete in one move. No, he shouldn't, because they would. The problem is the real story would get lost. So say, he did exactly what Pete Buttigieg did, but it's completely fake. The fact that it's fake is not going to get out there. The fact that the fake story is going to be what actually sticks. So you have to be careful with how people follow the news, because a lot of people just take in the initial headline and don't actually follow up with the information. But that is funny. I don't think you're serious anyways, but that is a funny thought anyways. Richard Weiss sends a $5 super chat. Thank you, Richard. Are we at the end here? I'm refreshing. There's another one. Richard Weiss sends another one saying Pete was endorsed by MLK, FDR, and JFK. They didn't opt out in time. Yeah, actually, Michael Brooks had a really funny joke about that. I can't repeat it because I'm not going to find it. But basically saying the same thing you kind of just said. That, hey, this amazing person endorsed me because they haven't opted out. Haven't heard back from them, so I guess they endorsed me. Carla Santos, again, thank you, Carla, for all the support here. Thoughts on Pete's demonic dance videos? I would play some if I wouldn't get a copyright strike, but I got a copyright strike. They are just hilarious. That song, by the way, has been stuck in my head for 3 days, and you just brought it up again in my mind. I think today I forgot about it. Now that you brought it up, I'm thinking about high hopes for the living. Just, oh my God. That whole thing is, one of the awesome things about it is how it's been twisted. Because you have these TikTok teens now. I don't have TikTok, so I just call them TikTok teens. But a lot of people use TikTok that aren't teens. But a lot of teens are like using that Pete Buttigieg dance with that song to expose how much of a horrible person Pete Buttigieg is, which you love to see. DB says Adolph Reed Jr. pointed to Bobby Kennedy, MLK, etc. Oh, we're in a different era of politics now. Look, again, anything's possible, always, but we are in a different era of politics. And even if they did that, it's not gonna. Bernie has a movement behind him. So regardless of what happens, regardless of who wins this race, things are going to change. Like, what young people feel right now about politics is not going to change if Joe Biden becomes president. Like, it's going to continue. The movement will continue. So I'm not even worried about that. Ian James Chapman It says Bernie's site on how to vote / when to vote for individual state primaries. Oh yeah, I'm not even sure that if that's his. Let me share it. I'm not sure if that's Bernie's. Maybe a fan made. But let me share it again. I do share this in most of my streams. The voteforbernie.org page. Let me bring it up right here. This right here. So this is what you got to do. Send this to your friends, family, or even to yourself. Voteforbernie.org. Excuse me. Brings you to this page. You go to your state. You see when the deadline is. So you see here, Minnesota is an open primary, Tuesday, March 3rd. Minnesotans can vote for Bernie Sanders regardless of their registered party. Awesome. So there you go. You go to, let's go to, I don't know, here, North Carolina. Semi-closed primary, Tuesday, March 3rd. North Carolinians must register as Democrat or undeclared to vote for Bernie. So you look at this, you go to your page, click on your state, you go down, and it tells you when you got to register by. So you got to register in North Carolina by February 7th, and you must be a Democrat or undeclared to vote. And then you can put an email in, your zip code, get updates. So voteforbernie.org. Vote for Bernie, not the number 4, but F-O-R. Vote, F-O-R, Bernie.org. Go there. Send this to your friends and family. Make sure they are registered and get everybody on board. It is important. I mean, if Bernie wins the nomination, if he becomes president, it not only has an impact on your country, it has an impact on my country, it has an impact worldwide. It would have a massive impact to have a superpower like the U.S. have a president that actually bases his policy, his politics in humanity, in human rights, in caring for people. Would be a huge shift. Some more super chats. Also, thank you, Ian, for sharing that. Tiger Uppercut fan sent $7 in. Thank you, saying, I really wish more people would point out Pete's billionaire donors. I think I do it every time. So whenever I talk about Pete, the last count that we had was he has 23 billionaire donors as of the summer. I'm not sure where it is right now, but I would like an update to that number. I'm sure it's more at this point. But yeah, Pete has a lot of billionaire donors. William Fleming says, did you see any clips from the Warren Atlanta speech last night? Ayanna Pressley was there and shut down some protesters who would not let Warren speak. I didn't see it. It's fine. Here's the thing with Warren. I don't know how solid her support is. We already see her dropping. Last I checked, I mean, it possibly could have changed, but no, it's still there. Last I checked the Real Clear Politics poll average, it appears that Bernie Sanders is now back in second. So look at that. Warren dropped considerably. She had her little rise. Now she's going like, that's a pretty big drop here. And you have Bernie jumping back up to second place. Meanwhile, you have Biden doing who knows what, up and down, up and down, up and he's riding a roller coaster here. I have no idea what's going on here with Joe Biden. But Bernie's back in second. And keep in mind, a lot of this polling, as I was saying earlier in the stream, is based on registered voters, based largely on voters over 50. Bernie has most of his support with largely non-voters, independents, and people that are under 50. So a lot of his support base is not truly represented in these polls. But it also, I mean, none of that matters if they don't come out to vote. So if the typical non-voter that supports Bernie doesn't come out to vote for him, well, it's not going to help that they support him at home. They have to come out and actually vote for him. So that support that Bernie has with those groups, younger people, non-voters, independents, they have to actually come out and vote for him in the primary, or else none of that matters. But that's how he would win, is by bringing out those people. More coming in. All right, get your last super chats in now, because I do have to go around 5. So let me just read the last bit here. And by the way, there's like a minute delay on the video. So right now it's 5:00 p.m. Get your super chats in. I will read them as long as you get them in by, say, 5:01, 5:02. No, 5. There's a minute delay, so let's say 5:02. I'll get to your super chat. Carla Santos again says, "I wonder if Pete's mom still makes him lunch." I don't know. I think there's a lot to go after Pete on. I wouldn't focus too much on his youth as the issue, but that's funny. I don't know. Rachel says, "Happy belated birthday." Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. All right. Get your super chats in. I'm going to assume people are kind of good at this point now. I should have slept a little more this morning. I feel like I'm talking like Joe Biden at points. All right, so there is something else I was potentially going to show, because I didn't cover it last time. Let me just share this. I didn't cover it. This won't even be. I'm not going to clip this out because this is like I'm like late to the story now.
Wrote in a tweet that.
But this was a fantastic response from Bernie Sanders here on Bolivia. So no other candidate has acknowledged. Oh, actually, I think Tulsi Gabbard now finally today has acknowledged the Bolivian coup. But Bernie here to Jorge Ramos saying what every candidate should be saying if they actually cared about the facts.
Wrote in a tweet that you thought it was a military coup, what happened in Bolivia. Many people have other point of view. They think that Evo Morales had been in power 14 years, that he wanted 5 more, and that he wanted to become a dictator. So what do you think?
No, I don't agree with that assertion. I think Morales did a very good job in alleviating poverty, in giving the indigenous people of Bolivia a voice that they never had before. Now, we can argue about his going for a 4th term, whether that was a wise thing to do.
And the OAS thought it was a fraud, the election on October the 20th.
Some people think that as well. But at the end of the day, it was the military who intervened in that process and asked them to leave. When the military intervenes, Jorge, in my view, that's called a coup.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all.
Like, that's the answer. Saying anything else is just wrong. Now, yes, of course, Bernie could have pushed back a little bit on saying the election was a fraud. That was backed by the OAS, a group that is largely funded by the U.S. government. So, yeah, they're going to take the side of the U.S. government. But Morales, his win mirrored what the polls were saying. And the only reason he got a lot of votes later on is because a lot of his votes came from rural areas. So, there was nothing at all suspicious about the race. There was no evidence to show that the election was a fraud. None. And you have the military ask him to leave before the end of his term. That's a coup. Forcing him out before the end of his term, that's a coup. And now the new ruling party is also, last I saw, threatening arrests to the rest of Morales' party that is currently in the legislature that have 2/3 of the seats for no reason except for the fact that they support Morales. So, it's obvious. If you know the facts, if you know what's happening in Bolivia, it's obvious. But you only have Bernie Sanders coming out and forcefully saying that. And by the way, he was on this early too, like the next day or a couple days after. Meanwhile, you have other candidates either say nothing or just come out now and say something about it. Y'all getting your super chats in late here, but I will get to them. So, all right. Now, make sure you got your super chat in. There's a minute delay. Hopefully, I will see it because I got to go. Where was I? Oh, I got to refresh this. Carlos Santos again. been a super fan in this chat. High hopes. High hopes for the living. Yeah, no. God, what a horrible song. Thomas Cruz says, would you consider having Shahid Buttar on? He is an amazing replacement for Pelosi and has amazing opinions. I would consider having him on. There are very few people I would consider interviewing. Actually, I may have even been emailed by his team. I get a lot of emails. I don't do a lot of interviews. So, yeah. It's just, I've discussed this before. I don't do many interviews with candidates because it feels weird. Because if I have you on, it's because I likely support you. But then in that case, I'm no longer reporting or, no longer being a reporter or I guess a journalist or a commentator. I'm just kind of being an activist and a supporter. So you kind of have to shift roles. I haven't really done that when it comes to interviewing candidates. So it's something I have to think about my approach to it. But I am considering it a little more, especially in the case of someone like Shahid Buttar, who would be fantastic. Everything I've seen about him, when I've seen his appearances on other shows, he was on the Michael Brooks show a few times now. He's fantastic. That Beastism sends super chat in saying, how can we find out how the progressives are? Wait, what? How can we find out how the progressives are? I don't know what that means. I think you're missing a word there, bro. How can we find out how the progressives are? I don't know what that means. But I'm doing well. So there's that. That's how you can find out, by asking us. I'm doing well. But all right, we've come to the end. 2 hours. Pretty solid stream today, I gotta say. Every Friday, you know the drill. Every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. RationalNational.com/join to become a Patreon, or I should say patron. The links are also below the video. You go to patreon.com/TheRationalNational. It gets to the exact same page. Support the show. Super chats also support me. If you know the Streamlabs link that I forgot, that also helps somewhere. So thanks for joining. This has been fantastic. Every week, 3 p.m. Eastern on this channel. All right. Thanks again. See you.